Supervillains oftentimes think of themselves as the darkest forces in the universe, but in reality there are things much darker than them. But they're dormant. They run on a different timeline than the rest of us. They move slowly. But when they do act, the results of their actions are devastating, horrifying. His name was Magnus Perfectblood. He had abandoned his human name long ago in pursuit of absolute power. He had reverse-engineered superpowers to give himself various abilities, strength, mastery over water, air. But still, Magnus would stay up late, looking out at the stars, looking out over the vast ocean, and think of himself. "I'm such an idiot," Magnus would say. The superheroes had tried to stop him in the past, but he had outsmarted them at every turn. And besides, Magnus wasn't a real supervillain. Sure, he didn't obey by the laws, but mostly he just wanted to be left alone. Occasionally, though, there were conflicts. "Together!" Defender said. He screamed and gathered the entire Golden Dawn, rushing towards Magnus. Magnus teleported from one end of the arena to the other and laughed. "Idiots!" Magnus said. "Don't you understand? In 1 second I will..." His mind stopped thinking. His body was severed from his brain. That was the telepath. Magnus raged and raged and raged. Something about emotions, the way that emotions got activated. The superheroes were about to touch him when, pop, Magnus was gone, far away from the arena. His plans shot, but he was alive. He panted, looking out over the vast expanse of the ocean, and he felt it, the incredible weight of all the things that he didn't know. He kneeled down in the sand, grasping it in his fingers. "Why?" Magnus said. And to his surprise, the ocean answered. There was a whisper in another language, something he didn't quite understand, but he felt compelled to look up, out at the dark ocean. Filled with pollution, the creatures had left long ago, and yet he could swear, out in the ocean, he saw something. A whale, perhaps? Magnus was intrigued. He teleported out to the whale's position, not even regarding the fact that he couldn't walk on water, and he fell into the water, looking down. When he saw the thing that was looking at him, he was absolutely shocked. It was a sea monster, a gigantic sea monster, a huge lizard with gargantuan blue eyes. It looked at him intelligently. Magnus wanted to teleport away, to attack the lizard, and yet something about the way the lizard was looking at him. It spoke to him then. "Caro mene," it said. An ancient derivative of Latin, perhaps? Magnus didn't speak the language, and yet the lizard's eyes focused on Magnus's. Magnus's eyes opened and went blue, the same blue as the lizard's blue. He suddenly felt the lizard speaking to him in his mind. "You're so much better than the other ones," the lizard said. It must have been 800 feet long, dominating the entire ocean seafloor. And yet it moved with incredible, cunning grace, looking at Magnus like it had been alive a long time. "You're so much better than the others," the lizard said. "I am Asna. We have the answers to the questions that you seek." Magnus spoke to Asna, the lizard, looking at her in her eyes. "Why give them to me?" Magnus said. "Everything has a price, does it not?" Asna laughed, looking at Magnus, smiling coyly. Did this giant sea lizard have an interest in Magnus? What made sense with all of that? "You're in luck," Asna said. "My brothers and I are convening tonight. We're talking about the great questions of the universe and consciousness." "Consciousness," Magnus said. The great question that had kept him up at night. Why, in a world full of godlike beings, did they still not understand? Why we could be self-aware? Why humans were so much more intelligent than anyone else? Why, despite all the existence of alien life, the fundamental human questions remained the same, unsolved? "Come with me," Asna said, pulling him deeper and deeper into the ocean. Away from human civilization, Magnus had the vague realization that he should have been crushed by the pressure, but the way Asna's tendrils held onto him, he felt held like he was coming home. It occurred to him then that he could have been terrified of this Asna. Sure, his teleportation and spatial manipulation could protect him to a certain extent, but this being was old. She radiated with power, and when he saw the place that Asna was taking him, his jaw dropped. Magnus's servers had detected a city under the sea, Atlantis. He had planned to make contact with the Atlanteans, but this was not Atlantis. This city was much larger, much more strange. Instead of buildings that resembled human buildings, they were holes in the ground, like inverted skyscrapers going deeper and deeper into the ocean floor. His jaw dropped, and Asna spoke knowingly. Yours are the first human eyes to lay witness to our home in this century. Magnus looked at her and asked her a simple question. What happened to the others, the humans before, who saw the city? Asna smiled. Not yet. They went to the center of the giant hole, big enough to dwarf sea monsters, make them look like the size of a human. Magnus was nothing but a speck. As they floated over the vast abyss at the center of the ocean, Magnus concentrated on his tie to the beach he had been on. Asna knew that he was a metahuman, but she probably didn't suspect that his teleportation had longer range. He could escape this situation once he had the knowledge and apply it to do whatever he wanted on the Earth realm. But still, this creature, he had never seen anything like her. How had they cloaked themselves for so long? Come with me, Asna said. He would have to outsmart the good nature of Asna and these brothers she spoke of. He would have to, but there was no thinking when he went into the abyss with Asna. Sure, he saw other giant lizards like she did, but he also saw giant crustaceans, moving insects with intelligent eyes, wearing robes, human-like, with glyphs written on them. He had 1,000 questions beforehand, and he was filled with 1,000 more. And sitting at the base of the throne, with Asna curled at his feet, was the squid. Of course, he had been known by many names, but Magnus just wanted to call him the squid. If he called him anything else, he would call him something like my Lord and Savior, Prince of Darkness, Angel of Evil. But as he sat at the squid's feet, and the squid met Magnus's eyes, it glowed with the same blueness as Asna's eyes glowed. And Magnus felt a connection, then, to all the creatures in the abyss, as he made eye contact with the squid. I admit your mind is interesting, the squid said, speaking with Magnus as if he had all the time in the world. Looking at the squid's flesh, the stone-like nature of it, Magnus supposed that he did. He instantly knew that the squid was older than the human race, perhaps older than intelligent life on Earth itself. And as the squid looked at Magnus in the eyes, he said, For a man who knows so much, you still have so many questions. Magnus looked between the creatures then. They seemed amused at his thirst for knowledge. I have questions, Magnus said, looking between them. If I answer your questions, the squid said, there is no going back. You understand. Magnus looked between the creatures. He thought about his anchoring beach that he could teleport to. They didn't know that he could escape. They didn't know that he had superpowers. He would take the knowledge of these old gods and apply it to humanity. Rule. The squid chuckled, amused. Magnus felt a hot rage inside him. What's so funny? Magnus said. The squid looked at him in the eyes and smiled. The fact that you think superpowers will save you. They all do. Magnus's connection to the beach faded away from his mind. Ask your question, the squid said. He could still kick out of the abyss, right? He looked high above. It was so dark below the ocean that there was no escape. Magnus tried swimming for a moment. Swimming. All the creatures laughed. The squid looked at Magnus in the eyes. Oh, come on, the squid said. You're not so boring as to swim for your life down here, are you? Asna looked at Magnus sadly, and he looked up at the squid. Ask, the squid said. You're never one to shy away from asking a question, are you, Magnus? Yet for the first time in his life, Magnus had the notion that the squid knew things that he might not want to know. Still, the student in him asked the question that he truly needed. Why are we conscious? Why are we cursed to know that we will die one day? Why are we so endlessly suffering? He looked into the squid's eyes. Why do I suffer when I know so much? He saw a point in the squid's black eyes, in the creature's eyes, something deeper. Freedom from suffering, the squid said. An interesting question. He looked deeper into Magnus's eyes. Magnus wanted to swim away now. He knew he wouldn't get the answer that he wanted to know, and yet the squid spoke. And when he spoke, the words resonated with Magnus so deeply, so perfectly, that Magnus started to change. His human skin transformed into stone. He stretched out. Asna looked at him with sad eyes and said one last sentence that he understood. You wanted to understand, Asna said. I'm just giving you the knowledge. Magnus's face split open. Tentacles went down his chest. He screamed as knowledge poured into his mind. The creatures all around him were chanting the language of the abyss, the language he didn't understand that now he understood. As he stretched out wider and wider, he teleported. Somehow his superpowers were still within him, and yet he was still transforming. He was growing bigger and bigger. He reached out of the abyss with claw-like, squid-like hands, and he felt the squid's hand on his shoulder, pulling him deeper and deeper into the abyss. "He's another squid," Asna said, looking at the squid and then Magnus. "But that means..." "Yes," the squid said. "He's my replacement." He smiled.